Looking ahead.
This week on Looking Ahead, Chad, we're going to start with the future of email, which is a weird thing to do because email is old, right? Email is old.
Yep.
But the reason we bring it up is because we've finally seen some innovation. As far as email goes, things have been very much the same for the last 20, 30 years probably. And it's one of those really important tools that is still used every single day. I know lots of people, lots of tech pundits over the years who've predicted that email would fall away and email will be superseded, but somehow it still survives and it's still a crucial piece of this world's technology, right? But unfortunately, it's become a little bit of a pain for a lot of us, Chad. I think you know the feeling. Anyone who's worked in a corporate knows the feeling when you log on and you see 374 emails in your box or 2,400. Like, the numbers are crazy. And I know of all those screenshots people take. Oh, look at my 13,000 unread emails in my inbox, right? It becomes a pain because email is one of those channels that everyone can just send stuff into. And if you don't manage it carefully, it can become a real pain and real anxiety-producing mechanism. And so everyone kind of has a love-hate relationship with email, I feel. It's very important and crucial for the work that we do, but it can be really damaging if we don't take care of it properly. And so there's this new company called Hey.com. I love the domain name, first of all, but Hey. And that has come out in the last couple of days that I think is fascinating. It's created by the guys who made Basecamp, which is one of my favorite apps, Jason Fried and David Hannemeyer Hansen. And they are really trying to do their best to reinvent the email experience for the user and try and make it a more pleasant place to be. So let's look at the features that really make this very different. The first thing, Chad, is that a little bit of branding here. They've changed what we call an inbox to an imbox, I-M-B-O-X, trying to get rid of that negative connotation of, I have to get into my inbox and get rid of it. And the reason they call it that is they think of it as an important box. So what they try and do with the inbox is only let important emails through and screen everything else out. So in a similar way that Gmail has tried to do it with their promotions tab and their marketing tab and all that good stuff, this is an advanced version of that and even more kind of strict about how they screen things. So what happens is that every time someone emails you for the very first time, it doesn't go into your inbox. It goes into like a screening process where you can then decide, cool, do I want to get emails from this person? If it's a no, say it's a marketing email, you never want to be emailed by these people. They got your email address from buying some database somewhere or whatever the story is. You click no, and that domain is blocked forever. They will never be able to email you ever again. So a very quick and easy way to screen out a lot of the unnecessary junk that gets into our email inboxes. After that, if you do want to get emails from them, you click yes, and then the emails will start to go into the inbox going forward. The second thing is how they've grouped the emails. So I don't know about you, Chad, but I kind of use my emails sometimes as a to-do list, and I'll go through it, and if there's something I need to do, I'll mark it as unread and leave it there to remind myself that I still need to go back to it, right? And it's a really inefficient way of doing things. You end up reading the email 4 or 5 times because you can't take action on it right now. So what they try and do in Hey is they try and group your read emails and your unread emails in separate places so that it actually acts as that to-do list. So you're not scrolling through tons of emails to figure out which are the ones I've starred or which are the ones I've left unread to go back to. It's in its own place. And those seen emails then become part of your archive as we would know it in normal emails. So an interesting just change in user experience there. The third thing, which is going to make a lot of email marketers quite worried, is this idea of the news feed, right? So I think everyone understands the idea that in your email inbox, you've got some important stuff that are from actual human beings that you want to reply to, but you've also got a bunch of newsletters, whether it's from Superbalist or Takealot or Amazon or bloggers that you follow or writers. Everyone has got an email newsletter these days, myself included, so it's a little bit ironic. Everyone's got an email newsletter these days, and those newsletters are not urgent, right? You don't have to read that newsletter that day, whereas actual work stuff is urgent and might need to be replied to that day. So what they do is they allow you to screen various things into your news feed. And what this does is instead of creating a list of new emails, it pulls out all the information for the emails and gives it to you in a news feed like we would see on Facebook or Instagram or anything like we've been used to. And you scroll down and scroll up and go through it at your leisurely pace. So it's not about opening each email, reading it, and then deleting it. Open the next one, read it, and delete it. It's all in a feed like we were used to with all of our other social media apps. So what the newsfeed does is it really does throw a spanner in the works when you're trying to do analytics on your emails, because all of a sudden sudden, what does an open actually mean if someone can just scroll right past it and kind of go to the next one? And so it's really going to change the experience of email newsletters and newsletters in general. I think what Hey are trying to do is trying to make it as pleasant as possible and get rid of all the spam that comes our way, right? With one click, you can remove that from your newsfeed and they'll never be able to email you again. Now, obviously, you could do that previously by blocking emails and whatnot, but the user experience is so much cleaner and so much more well-designed in this instance. The last piece, and I think it's the most important one, is they're blocking against privacy violations. So whether you know it or not, there's a lot of companies right now that will allow people to send emails and then will track, did you open the email? What time did you open it? Where in the world were you? How many times did you open it? A tremendous amount of personal information about how you've interacted with that email. And that's how marketers have kind of A/B tested various things and tried to make sure they increase their open rates as much as possible. So it's a huge industry to understand that conversion. Hey thinks this is not fair and not reasonable. And I kind of agree, especially when it's myself. I don't want that data to be going to somebody else. And so they've done a very clever workaround where Hey will open the email for you in their own little server, like a VPN type setup, so that the data is meaningless to the person they send it to, and then a forwarded version comes into your inbox to be read. And so you don't give up any information when it comes to your location or how many times you read it or did you read it, etc., etc. And not only that, they show a little box that kind of names and shames the person. It says, this person sent you an email from this mailing client. We blocked the privacy tracking pixels for this reason, etc., etc. So it really is a big kind of screw you to these companies, which I quite enjoy. So all in all, I feel like I'm waffling here, Chad, but I'm quite excited about this. And I think it's going to change how email is done going forward. And I'm excited to see if these features are going to become commonplace in some other apps in the future.
Well, Barry, I've only seen you this excited about one other thing, and that was about makeup and AI makeup. And so it's really interesting to see you as interested again in something as interesting as email. But I think you're right. I think we've been looking for some changes for some time. I have been quite impressed, to be honest, about Google's offering and how it screens and filters out various kinds of things. And I think we've needed that for a long time. But at the same time, it's never perfect. Very often, some stuff will end up in my scam box, and it's actually a really important email. And so I think any new providers here are certainly not coming to this game too late. I don't know if there is such a thing as too late. But for me, the interesting thing here is, what is it that they are offering? Do you have to sign up to a hey.com email address, or will they take on your Gmail address as well?
So what happens, as far as I understand, is you sign up and you do get a hey.com email address, and you can forward your Gmail address into Hey. So it's because of all the workarounds, because of what they're trying to do, it's not possible to take your old Gmail address and use it like as normal. But what you can do is kind of get a fresh start, and that's what they're trying to do in their marketing, trying to say, get a fresh start, declare inbox bankruptcy, get rid of all of that stuff. You can always forward all your emails, so you don't have to tell everybody else you've changed emails. But using Hey is kind of it's a workflow tool more than anything else. It's hard to explain. Like I would really encourage you, if email is something you struggle with or that really is a pain, go and watch some of the things online, some of the videos, and you'll get a good sense as to what they've tried to do here. It's a very clever use of kind of social engineering and try and really make it as pleasant as possible for the user. Like you say, Chad, filtering and all that stuff is not new. It's not something that's brand new, but it's the way they've put it all together and really like knitted into this brand new experience that is interesting. The second thing is why it's different to Gmail is that Gmail are harvesting that data to be used elsewhere, right? Yeah. And that's why it's free. Hey.com isn't free. It's a subscription service for email. So instead of paying in data, you're paying in dollars every single month, and then you know that none of your information is being leaked. You're not getting sold anything. It's one of those things where they're pushing against that advertising model that Gmail is so crucial for. So the question is, will people spend for email? I don't know. It's a question that needs to be asked. But for some of those power users who really are frustrated by the experience right now and who get thousands of emails every single day, I think this is very powerful. And online has been a huge hype about it.
Well, let's talk about that point, Barry. Let's talk about the money. And I suppose why this has been such a big story this week is I actually didn't even know what it was or, what the service was or what the offering was. But I came across this Hey.com name and I came across it in some Apple disputes. where Apple are complaining really about listing this app on their ecosystems because of the fact that there are no in-app purchases available and that the subscription model is actually held outside of the App Store. And I found this fascinating because there's lots of cases of this. I think of the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite where you go onto the Adobe website, sign up your subscription there, you don't go across this App Store at all, but that's okay. So why did this one cause so much noise this week?
It's so interesting, Chad, because it's one of those things that I've been watching this as a marketing ploy as well. Like you say, the publicity that the Hey.com guys got out of the story was immense, especially for a brand new product, right? And so they really did really well to use it for that reason. Basically, what happened was that they were fighting against the App Store. If you don't know, if you want to be in the App Store for Apple and you want to sell a subscription, say an in-app purchase, or you want someone to buy your app, etc., Apple will take 30% of the commission for that, which is a huge amount, right? And especially if you're on an email app where you can't charge crazy amounts for email for individual people. And so, like you say, a lot of people are trying to go around the App Store. They're trying to get the subscription outside of the App Store and just use the App Store for distribution. And we've seen that in the past. People have managed to get it right. And so for some reason, Apple picked up on Hey when they launched and wouldn't allow them to send updates to the store to fix bugs and whatnot because they were going against this rule. And Hey was like, hold on, but there's tons of apps who already do it like this, and you haven't kind of come down on them. And plus, it's a huge antitrust thing, right? Why should I be forced to sell an in-app purchase through your app? Why should that be a reason? Especially if a lot of my discovery might be coming from elsewhere. And Apple's point of view is that they've built this ecosystem over years and years and years. The reason it's so valuable to be on that App Store is because there are millions and millions of iPhones to sell to. So that is why our commission is reasonable. So it's an interesting economic debate as to how much of a monopoly does Apple actually have. Can they impose this sort of thing on an app? Can they impose it on everybody to say that you have to have your in-app purchases going through the App Store and not elsewhere? And it's very timely because at the moment, literally we started today, was Apple's WWDC conference, which is when their developers all go to hear about the new developments when it comes to making apps. And so this is a developing story, Chad, but I think that the Hey.com guys are trying to use it as an example of how Apple is kind of pushing down smaller developers. And they're in a position to say something because they've got a name and a brand behind them, whereas tons of developers have probably faced the same issues but haven't had the platforms to speak up.
It's a really important discussion to be having, and for the people who love Apple products, I'm certainly one of those on the far end of the fanboy scale. Do you actually want to be supporting a business that is just placing these mandatory, really high commissions on every single app purchase? Like you said, Barry, sure, they've set out the framework of what this operating system does, but they didn't develop the app. They didn't come up with the idea of the app, etc., etc., etc. And so I do see a place for some sort of commission, but I do think it should be a reasonable amount. And it's an interesting discussion to have. And I wonder really, as time tracks on, how much pressure us, the users, are going to be putting onto Apple for these types of scenarios. Across the pond.